After Talk Radio, you're in to all things music.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome to Jackie's Groove. Hey, it's another rock and roll day, guys, and our fifth interview that's been bestowed on us by this amazing new documentary called The Hired Gun. Coming out nationwide, June 29th, one night only, 300 screens nationwide. You don't want to miss it. And as talking to Fran Strine, the director, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be looking at Netflix and HBO down the term. So with that said, everybody, welcome to Jackie's Groove, and my in-studio guest today, an amazing female. God, I love to have more estrogen on my show. I'm so overloaded with testosterone. It's ridiculous. So with that said, I want everybody to welcome with open arms and open ears, and a big, big welcome to a Femme Fatale by the name of Nita Strauss. Nita, welcome to Jackie's Groove, love.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's so much, and thank you for being part of the situation and being on this big bandwagon called the Hired Gun. In fact, the tagline I love, out of the shadows into the spotlight, is exactly what we do here on Jackie's Groove. We celebrate the hired guns, the grunts, if you will. I'm one of those also. The ones that are below the marquee supporting the ones above the marquee. We are unsung heroes, and we are also considered the elite. And how does it feel to be considered the elite? Because I love your role, and I've seen the documentary 3 times, and I'm going to see it on the 4th time itself. So when they came to you, better yet, who came to you and offered you this part of this documentary?
You know, it was actually Alice that recommended me for it. Fran, who you spoke to, was at Alice's hotel doing an interview with him. And from what I understand, partway through the interview, he stopped and said, "Have you guys talked to Nita yet?" And they said, "No, why?" And really, I've been touring 15 years, and I would say like 85% of that has been as a hired gun. So I think it was really, really cool of Alice to offer me the opportunity to tell my side of the story and offer the perspective of a female hired musician.
And I love the fact, too, that you and I have, we don't know each other personally, but we do have a mutual friend. In fact, you filled her shoes. Her name is Orianthi, and what an amazing player. In the 2014 is when she stepped out of Alice Cooper, you stepped in. How was that transition for you to take over her position?
I didn't really think of it so much as taking over her position at all. Ori's such a fantastic player. I don't think anybody should try to fill her shoes. Like, really, all I try to do is bring my voice and my perspective to Alice's band.
Right.
No one can out Ori. Ori is amazing. She's amazing at what she does, and I wouldn't try to replace her in any way.
Let's talk about you for a second. There's one of the cutest parts, and I hate to use that term, cutest parts, but the camera caught you when you were together with the whole band, with Liberty, and when you guys were all playing together. And you had the sexiest look on your face. You kind of winked at somebody I think you know which one I'm talking about. You winked at somebody, I don't know if it was a camera crew or somebody in the band. How was that to be surrounded by that longevity? Now, Liberty and I go back years. I mean, much older. I'm much older than you are. Liberty's much older than I am. So the fact of being in that situation, let's talk about Alice, all the longevity, how to stay relevant all these years itself. Does Nita have a forward plan of how to stay relevant 30 years from now?
Well, yeah, absolutely. My original band, We Start Wars, just put out our first single, The Animal Inside, which is available on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and all that good stuff. And my first solo song came out in January. That's my first solo instrumental song. Came out on Steve Vai's label, Favored Nations, on a compilation called She Rocks, which is myself, Orianthi, Jennifer Batten, Neely Bosch, Gretchen Menn, a lot of it, just amazing female guitar players. So, it's been a journey, and there was definitely a lot of surreal moments on the filming of the Hired Gun film. I think the wink you're referring to is my boyfriend Josh was in the in the studio as we were filming. So I don't recall actually seeing that in the movie, but I'm sure if I was winking at anybody, it would have been him.
That was cute, though, and I hope I didn't get you in trouble on that also. I just thought it was just something very something very, very, very cute and very sexy about that whole situation. Where, by the way, I didn't ask Fran or Liberty, where was that filmed, that band sequence?
It was filmed at a studio in L.A. I can't recall the name. And
speaking of L.A., you are born and raised in L.A., if I'm not mistaken. In fact, December 7th.
Correct. Pearl Harbor Day.
You came to this world. So when did you realize the fact that, if in fact that guitar was your first instrument, what instrument called you, and what age were you when you started playing?
I started playing music around 12, and I started out actually as a drummer, and I was like really not any good at all. Like I just wanted to play, I just wanted to play music. So I got a little drum set, and I wasn't any good. I don't have any meter. I still, my boyfriend Josh is a drummer, and I play his drums all the time, and I'm still not no good. But I started playing drums, and I wasn't any good at it. And then I went to bass, and, cause my best friend at the time played guitar. So I said, well, she'll play the guitar, I'll play the bass so we can jam. I wasn't any good at that either. And then finally I found the guitar, and the guitar was the one that stuck. I just never put it down.
Isn't that amazing? Because I talk to a lot of, when I speak to a lot of younger kids and parents with regards to mentoring music and so on, I always tell a parent, never shove an instrument down a child's throat. Send a kid to a Guitar Center or an Amoeba Music, and let the instrument call that child's name. And let's be honest also, if your child doesn't have talent, I don't care how much tutoring by the best they give. If they can't play, they can't play. And so they need to look at something else and not be embarrassed by that. But when you took over the guitar, I mean, that became an appendage of your body, at least from all the stuff that I've been watching you online, not just the Hired Gun, but a thing called YouTube. You can stalk your favorite entertainers on there and so on. With that said, with your inspirations in the young girls and guys that you've inspired, to thus date itself, who inspired Nita growing up, or even currently, who are you inspired by guitar-wise?
Well, for me, it was always Steve Vai from the very beginning and still now today. I saw the movie Crossroads, and that really jump-started my love of playing music. And just to piggyback on what you were talking about starting out playing music, I have to respectfully disagree with all due respect, because I wasn't any good at playing guitar when I first started. And, I come from a long line of musicians, my dad's side all the way back to the composer Johann Strauss. And, I had music around. All my family members are musicians. And while it wasn't shoved down my throat, it was definitely encouraged. And I think without that encouragement, I wouldn't have gone on to become a good guitar player. I think if your child isn't good at what they're doing to begin with, I think encouraging them to practice.
Oh, absolutely.
Improve is better than telling them, oh, you're not no good.
No. I did not.
That's not what you meant.
Exactly.
I totally know that's not what you meant. But just to piggyback on that, I just think it's so important, as a parent. And, it's not fun to practice. My dad never made me practice, and I kind of wish he would have.
Right.
I'd probably be a lot better now. It's never bad to have that discipline, as whether it's coming from a parent or a music teacher or whatever it is in your life.
Without question, to get that thumbs up and get the affirmation that you're doing the best you possibly can, but you can always room to do better. I mean, I grew up in a family of music lovers, but I'm the only musician in my huge family, and so on. So, being raised in an Armenian Italian household, but what was pumping through the Bertoni speakers were Latin music. It was was that my journey to be a percussionist? No, but my mom never put sticks in my hands because she didn't want me to fuck up the furniture, for the lack of a better word. So, so hand drums, is what I became familiar with, and I knew that at a young age is what I wanted to do. I always said, even at a young age, I played with Santana until the needle broke, so that was my inspirations growing up and so on. But I also was, I grew up with a girl, I think her name was, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek, called Lita Ford. And my next door neighbor, Sandy Watson, she was best friends of all the girls from the Runaways. Did that have any?
Wow.
Did that have any anything to do with your career at all? Were you a fan of theirs at all? Since they were possibly the first part of female bands.
They really were. And I always say, you know, in every interview that I do, anytime I get a chance to talk about it, I always give all the credit to Hart and Lita and Joan Jett and the rest of the Runaways and all the amazing women that blazed the trail for us to be able to do what we do now. You know, it's definitely still a man's world. It's still, you know, as you said, there's a lot of testosterone on your show and in the entire music industry. Right. But I think without, you know, Pat Benatar and Lita, you know, I've played with Lita many times and gotten to, you know, be on a lot of panels with her and stuff. And I always tell her, you know, every chance I get that she was really, you know, without her and her, you know, everyone that she was surrounded with doing this, it would be a lot harder for us now.
And I believe that to be, you know, to be completely full. Because my friend, a longtime friend who I interviewed, I think it was last month, a girl by the name of Ann Wilson from a group called Heart. You know, and I said to Ann, I said, you know, here you and your sister came in 1979 into a male-dominated world, which is still a male-dominated business, but you slapped them across the face with a velvet fist. And she goes, I love that tune, you know, and it's true. And she stayed relevant all this time. Has Ann Wilson been any part of your journey, your career at all? And do you respect her playing?
Oh, of course. I mean, and more than anything, like, you know, like even I can even expand on it further to just, you know, the journey and the barriers that they broke down, you know, in those early years in the 70s and 80s when nobody was doing it. Right. You know, I think the only female guitar player by then was Sister Rosetta Tharpe. You know, like, I mean, was anybody else doing it? No, nobody was doing it. And, you know, I feel so privileged now and so blessed to be on the forefront of this, like, huge surge of amazing female musicians. You know, there's, you know, Orianthi, of course, is probably the best known of all of us. And Jennifer Batten, you know, who was the original Michael Jackson guitar player, you know. And I remember seeing her. I'm a huge NFL fan. And I remember seeing her playing at the Super Bowl with this big shock of blonde hair. And I was going, oh, my God, it's so cool. Like, if she can do that, I can do that. And I played with Jennifer 2 years ago at the She Rocks Awards. And afterwards, I totally, like, you know, she and I were trading solos. And I totally embarrassed myself. And, like, I sprinted across the stage and I gave her this huge hug. And I was just saying, thank you so much for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I think I just completely threw her off. But it was just, like, such a dream come true to get to stand on stage with Jennifer as a peer, you know, after all these years of looking up to her. And I still do look up to her so very much. And, you know, and Hart and Joan Jett and Lita and all the women that made it possible for us to do what we do now.
And let me ask you a question and share with this listening audience worldwide. When you got called for Alice's gig and you went through the rehearsals and the standards, what it is, can you share with the listeners, and if you can remember exactly what you were feeling, kind of let the listeners feel right now, walk in your footsteps. How was the first time when you walked out on a huge audience, not rehearsal, but the actual stage with Alice Cooper? Was that one of your biggest aha moments?
Well, you know, I love that we're doing, and I love that this is my press day today, and I love that we're having this conversation right now because today, this exact day, is the 3-year anniversary of my first rehearsal with the band.
Oh, congratulations.
Exactly right now. Thank you. So I was probably, like, at this exact moment 3 years ago, I was probably, you know, tuning up my guitar and getting ready to start playing through these songs for the first time. And I just remember, like, you know, really for me, I've been touring since I was 15. I'm 30 now. So, like, it's rare for me to get nervous. I'm a very, like, I'm an over preparer. Like, I prepare so much that it would be impossible for me to be nervous because, like, it's very rare that I'll lose my place or forget something because I just over practice. You know, like, I just drill these songs. I don't listen to anything else when I'm getting ready for tour. Like, I listen to these songs nonstop. And, you know, I had asked for a board mix of the show with Ori's guitar taken out so I could really, like, hone in on what I wanted to do and make sure I had my parts clean. And everything was just really smooth. You know, playing with, you know, Glenn Sobel's an incredible drummer, also in the Harry Gunn film. Chuck Garrick's been with Alice 16 years, I think, now. You know, Ryan, of course, has been with Alice on and off since 96, I want to say. Like, so, you know, and Tommy Hendrickson, you know, me and Ryan and Tommy, you know, the 3 guitars in this band, we just have, like, a very, very easy very easy dynamic between the three of us. You know, there's never any competing for solos or competing for time. It's just like, it just all really fell into place. So it was a lot of fun. It was really more fun than anything.
Love, and next question, how scripted is Alice's show, or is that not even a part of the word of his show, scripted?
I wouldn't say it's you know, maybe because there's the guillotine and the Frankenstein and all that. I mean, all that is scripted, of course. We know what direction the Frankenstein's going to come from, what direction the guillotine's going to come from, and all that stuff. But besides that, it's very organic. I mean, you know, there are certain places that we tend to fall into night after night because it's just a routine. You know, you do the same show over and over again, you fall into some patterns, but there was never any like, okay, you start here, then you go there, then we stand here, then we go back to back. Like, it was never anything like that. It just happened organically.
You know, in majority of my interviews, just so you know, with the exception of the hired gun, because we have so many of your constituents on the show that are coming on my show even after the 29th of the debut. But my interviews usually run between an hour to 2 hours long, and even 2 hours, taking a career of, in your case, a younger career, 15 plus years, versus guys that are 40 years in the careers. You never have enough time to talk about it. So, you know, I want to delve in deeper with you itself, and I always want to also welcome you back later on when we have more promotion just for you. That's what it's all about. You know, and I mentioned a little, you're welcome, love. And I mentioned a little while ago about the fact of being called a hired grunt. I mentioned that to Ann Wilson, and Ann said, you know what? I love that term, hired grunt. She says, you know why, Jackie? Because I am a hired grunt. And that is not a bad word, because, you know, I like the word gun more than grunt, but the bottom line is, the fact of the matter is we are the unsung. To this day, I swear to you, Nita, I will never fucking understand for me, in any award show, who are the last credits that roll up on that? The musicians. You know, I'm sick of that. I'm sick of the fact of the matter is, if it wasn't for music, there would be no shows. And, you know, and based upon that, you know, and when we get up there and we, you know, I would consider you a true road dog. I know I am. You know, you know, and I tell all the younger guys out there, the younger listeners, the younger players, you know, there's a thing called YouTube, and, you know, there's only a few people that have become YouTube sensations. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that your legacy or your longevity is going to be lasted by sitting in front of a camera on YouTube. There's been two people who have done this. The one that comes to my mind, of course, is Justin Bieber, but we'll talk about that on the next Oprah. But with that said, you've got to get bruised. You've got to get beaten up. You've had to get doors slammed in your face to get those war scars and to earn those stripes. Do you agree with that itself? Do you agree with being a little bit beaten up, not to be tarnished by it, but to be healed by that?
I agree with you 100,000,000,000%. I couldn't possibly agree more. And that's my advice to every young musician I talk to, is get out there and play. When I started touring, you know, I started playing guitar at 13. I was on the road by 15 on Van's Warped Tour. And I had dropped out of school at 17 to pursue being a musician full time. And I would literally, I know, and I'm not recommending this approach to everyone, but this is what I did. I literally, Jackie, would play guitar for anybody that would have me. I didn't care if it was rock, pop, funk, death metal. Like, you know, I went straight from like a metalcore, crazy 30 dates in a row, you know, tour in Europe, to Jermaine Jackson, back to the metalcore band, to the Iron Maidens tribute band, to, you know, to a Femme Fatale, to all the, you know, all these other bands. And I think that's really what seasons you as a musician. You can sit in your bedroom and practice all you want, but once you get out there and you get on stage, it's a completely different thing. You know, as you know, as a musician, really, like, performing is 10% how you play and 90% how you react to everything else that's happening around you. The broken string, the loose snare head, you know, the cymbal falling off the stand, the, you know, the guy in the crowd, the drunk guy in the crowd yelling stuff at you. People, you know, in my case, grab me on my legs all the time, trying to pull me off the stage. Like, it's all about how you react. It's all about how you interact and react.
And I agree with you 100,000% on that also, because we've all had that. People who look at you and look at Jackie and look at Glenn and look at everybody in the industry going with Alice itself, they think it's a glamorous industry. Now, you know, truth be told, kids, there's nothing glamorous in what we do. It's a hurry up and wait game. The only thing fun about touring is sitting around and chopping it up and shooting the shit with people during a thing called sound check. Now, with that said, does your band, and I ask this because I'm amazed at how many people do or don't, does Alice do his own sound checks, or do you guys have your crew do that for you?
The band does it. We do ours for the most part. Alice does not come to sound check unless we're doing something new.
And with that said, too, also with the ambiance on the stage, depending on the vibe and how big the venue is, does Nita prefer in-ear, or are you still a girl that goes back to the old school by the Wedge?
Oh, I'm all in-ears. As whenever I can get a pair of in-ears in, I'll have them in. You know, as a performer, I'm all over the stage.
Okay.
And if I have to rely on the Wedge, it's very limiting for me. Of course, I don't mind it. You know, like,
okay.
Not like I won't have a good show if I'm on a Wedge, but,
right.
You know, I'll go as far away from the stage as I can get. You know, if there's subs, if there's wings on the stage, if there's anything I can get on to jump off or do anything, like, that's where I'm going to be. And if I was relying on a Wedge, I'd be in a pretty tough spot.
Nita, what don't you want to hear in your ears?
You know, I have a mix of everything in my ears, really. I have my guitar, my in-ear mix is my guitar and the kick and snare in the forefront, and then I just have like a good mix of the full band because I like to hear what's going on. And
you guys, are you traveling with a house engineer? Does he travel? Does she travel with you 24/7 or on this tour, or are you picking them up as you go to the venues?
No, we travel with our own front of house gear. We travel with our PA and our monitor guy and our front of house guy and lighting guy and all that.
I love it. And let me ask you this question, two-part question. Smallest audience with Alice, you remember what that was?
Ooh, what would be the smallest one? I mean, you know, right now we're on, you know, every year Alice we do sort of like a couple warm-up runs, like 2 weeks here, 3 weeks there, and it's theaters. So, you know, we're just ending that right now. We're actually doing a festival tomorrow, but it's been mostly like, you know, more intimate theater shows, you know, like 1,500, 2,000 people.
Right.
And that's, you know, and that's really fun for us because we get to be like really up close and personal with everybody. And then, of course, like now after this, we're going to Europe. We're doing Wacken and a lot of big festivals over there. So that's going to be the polar opposite. And that's like actually most of the rest of the year for us is these bigger things. You know, we're doing the amphitheater tour with Deep Purple after that. And then some festivals in Japan and Australia and all that. So I think this is going to be the end of the more intimate shows for us. But it's a really good time.
I asked that question because we were honored with actually Mr. Al Jarreau's last interview. And we talked about this, you know, about his stage. And he says, you know, Jackie, I've played in front of 30,000 people, 40, 50,000 people through the Montreal Jazz Festivals throughout Europe. And the word festivals obviously makes the word that much more bigger than the audience, I should say. But he said, I prefer the smaller venues. He goes, I prefer where I can look over and say, yes, the pretty lady over there in the red dress. Allow me to lean over the stage and sweat on your husband's blue suede shoes. He goes, I want to hear the audience breathe. Yeah, he goes, I want to hear the audience breathe. I want to get the response because I know what it's like to play in front of 100,000 people. It scared the fuck out of me. You know, but at the same time too, I prefer the Roxy. I prefer the smaller venues itself. The Humphreys out in San Diego. 1,500 people where you can see what the audience's reaction is. The repertoire that you have. And with that said, you know, on the other side of the coin, what is the biggest stage you've played on? The biggest audience you played on with Alice?
With Alice, I think it was probably Grass Top Festival, maybe, or Hellfest, one of those ones. I think those are both 70,000, 80,000.
Do you agree with me? The fact that I'll say it again, it scared the fuck out of me. How did you feel about that? Because you really don't see nothing but a sea of face. Did you really?
Oh, I love it. You put me, listen, you let me show off in front of as many people as I can show off in front of it. I'll do it. My first time playing in a stadium was with Jermaine Jackson in 2010, and I had the bug. We played at, we're doing soccer stadiums in Africa with Jermaine Jackson. I was like, this is amazing.
Crazy,
there's so much room. There's so much room to run around. That's what I want to do. I'm a performer. I perform big. So, I actually if I'm on a smaller stage, I feel like I don't get as good of a workout. That's for sure.
Well, see, and here me as a percussionist, I'm surrounded by a wall of congas and timbales and toys and so on.
Right.
But my biggest crowd was 100,000 people at the Rose Bowl. I did a big show called the America Fest with Dick Clark, God rest his soul, and I was working with a group called CNC Music Factory. And everybody dance now, right? So me as a jock, I wasn't impressed that I was playing in front of 100,000 people. I was impressed by that I was actually on the field of the Rose Bowl, backstage.
Yep.
Yeah, backstage in the locker room, thinking about how many hoofs cross that gridiron, so that everybody has their own little situation that motivates them. And you know what motivates me is I want to, is these interviews like I'm doing with you now. I'll say it again. I would really want to delve in more to you when we have, more time. We can really sit down and talk about it, because I want to find out everything from A to Z to Nita Strauss. And with that said, I want everybody to go to nitastrauss.com. You can stalk this woman and find out exactly what she's all about. Her personal career with Femme Fatale, her personal career with the Iron Maidens. I love that word, by the way. That whole vibe itself. And then everything she's done with Alice Cooper. I mean, in this whole thing with The Hired Gun, getting back to the crux of this interview. Again, to reiterate, 300 screens nationwide, one day, June 29th. I need to have you all go. And this is the listeners all around the world. Well, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get that around the world. But for the States, go to Fathom, Fatham events.com, search Hired Gun, type in your zip code, and hopefully there will be a theater near you. If not, make the pilgrimage to see this, because I reiterate, I've seen it 3 times. I will see it again today. I'm bringing Fran back on, and I'm bringing the gentleman who did all the editing, who did all those great editing cuts on the film. We're going to be talking about that. So with that said, let me ask you a question, girl. Have you had the opportunity yet to see this in a theater?
I have seen it in a theater, yeah. I saw it at one of the screenings that they did in Santa Monica, which was cool. So cool, because that's where I was born. I saw it. You could see the hospital where I was born from outside the theater, so it was cool. Again, we talked earlier about how everything kind of comes full circle, and it was very cool to do that. And my parents get to see it at the theater that I went to movies at as a kid, so it's very cool.
And I want to say, think about it. Skywalker fucking Ranch. You guys put this music together. I mean, to see this into a theater with 70,000 kids, 70,000 watts of music. I mean, it is amazing. And I use this term, and Fran's going to steal this from me. I said in a statement that the Hired Gun documentary will be the template for all rock documentaries and documentaries in general to come. I say this, I yell it out, and I say it really close to the mic. HBO, if you're listening, this is a series that needs to be picked up, because think about it. There's 40 musicians that didn't make the first cut of the first part of the documentary. In fact, Fran said to me, and even Liberty said to me, and he goes, Jackie, he goes, if we would have known, or his friend said, if I would have known you earlier, I would have definitely had you in this because of the longevity. I said, hey, God willing, I'll be around tomorrow. So on the second one, and yes, kids, there's another one coming up. I'm sure there's many more after that, because there's just so many great entertainers that have graced this stage. And again, too, I love Nita's, her talk, what she said about how she performs, how she gets out there. And of course, if I looked like Nita, I would be out in front also. And I say that as a compliment also. But above and beyond the look itself, girl, you kick ass. You are a serious talent, and I thank that situation. And I thank everybody at the Hired Gun for making Jackie's Groove and Intertalk Radio part of this huge extravaganza. And, and with that said, is there, from what you saw, Nita, on this term, is there anything that was really struck you on this 98-minute documentary that you really, really liked and that hit home? Was there any part of that documentary you want to share with us?
There were several, but I would say, the thing that really struck me the most was all the parallels between my story and everybody else's story. You go through all this stuff as a musician, you go through these highest highs and these lowest lows, and you think that, how come this is working for everybody else and it's not working for me? And, you hear Jason's story in the movie about how he was playing with, I think, Mandy Moore. He had just bought a house, and all this stuff, and then they pulled the gig. And, I had such a similar experience with Jermaine Jackson. I was, I had a flight from England booked to start rehearsals with Jermaine. And, 2 days before the rehearsal started, they said, we're only going to be using one guitar player. We don't need you. Mm-hmm. And I remember having that, punch in the gut feeling of like, what did I do? Why not me? Why somebody else and not me? And, seeing this movie kind of gave me the realization that it's just something that happens in the biz. I hate that term, but it really is. Like, it's the only appropriate term. That's just what happens in this business.
Girl, let me step in right now. Let me step in. I'm going to interrupt you right now, because not only the song said school's out for summer, but we're out of time right now, girl. And we welcome you. We always welcome you back. to Jackie's Groove. Everybody, Jackie's Groove, Intertalk Radio Network, The Hired Gun with Nita Strauss from Alice Cooper's band. Girl, thank you so much for gracing our stage. And as I say with everybody, peace through music. Love you, girl. Thank you so much.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.